Thanks for pressing play. You're listening to the Broady Windsor Group on Real Estate, the podcast for homeowners seeking guidance and support on everything related to owning a home. This includes much more than just buying or selling. We've got you covered for everything from mortgages and financing to home maintenance tips, renovation and design advice, and of course, the latest insights and analysis on what's happening in our local communities. Welcome to today's episode. I'm very excited to have our guest today, Jim McDonald. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you. I'm very appreciative. I'm ready to go.
It's great to have you. Jim, you've been a trusted advisor and contractor here in the West Island for over 30 years.
Yep.
Our paths have crossed several times with mutual clients.
Yeah.
I know we've gone in to look at homes and clients have had you come in to give an assessment before they would purchase, things like that.
Yep.
And then most recently, one of our clients was unfortunately a victim of the floods on August 9th. And you were the guy that was there. So I want to get into that.
Awesome.
And get a little bit more detail, because today that's what we want to talk about is flood management. What should homeowners be aware of when there are extreme weather events that seem to be happening more and more frequently?
Yeah.
And so maybe just tell us a little bit about Jim McDonald Renovations and how you got started in this business.
Yeah. Okay. Well, gosh, I started when I was probably about 3 or 4 years old. My dad let me have a hammer in my hand. He was building homes in the Maritimes in Prince Edward Island, and my dad's sons were his team. So we started building there. I never looked back of, that's what I need to do. It's build because my dad taught me well how to do it, Yeah. From that flourished to going to college. Teachers were on strike. So I said, I'll go do what I'm good at. I started my renovation company at around 20 years old. Didn't look back since then.
And I think you've built your business on word of mouth and repeat business from clients. And it's almost like, do the job right and think about the future. And I know we were talking off camera earlier about your dad was in real estate and sort of instilled a little bit of that in you. Maybe tell us a little bit about how that went.
Well, my dad, when I go to someone's house now and I coach them or I give them advice or how to rebuild, I don't tell people what to do, but I'll explain them what I know and what's the good things for their home. I always fall back to the real estate value of the home, because eventually, this home is supposed to grow in value, and be careful of the pitfalls. So when I help someone look at a house for renovation, I'll try to advise them what they're going to find out. But my dad was a real estate agent, and he was a very honest guy, hardworking guy, and he reached all platforms and started his own commercial real estate company after a while. And he taught me the value of a home and, make sure that don't put too much money into it, put the right amount of money into it, maintain it properly, build it so it lasts a long time. That was my dad's philosophy. And from that, when I go to someone's home and I advise them, especially with floods, besides all the decisions they have to make on a flooded basement, is that what are you going to do when it comes time to sell that house? And you have to do your declaration, which is the most honest thing to do, and it protects you and the homeowners buying your house. You want to make sure that you did your due diligence, that your house keeps value, and that you're selling a proper product, your home.
Now, this is a great segue into the recent story that we have to tell, which is we had a client whose house was on the market, and we'd had lots of visits. There was good good word of mouth around the property, and then August 9th happened, and this is a home that had never been flooded in 25 years that they lived there, and then they called you because you were, I think, working on a house on the same street next door.
Yeah. And we had introduced ourselves prior to this flood, and we're typically being engaged for their following home renovation. And so I get a call during that flood, and listen, what are you going to do? What can you do? Can you help me? So beyond all the clients that I helped that night, showing up at his basement and how to extract the water that was in his basement. We got to the point with him of, he's a very smart fellow and knew how to be proactive. So We extracted the water, and he got busy right away thinking, how am I going to protect my home? How am I going to put this investment back on the market? And we were very gung-ho to follow him on this project. So it became extract the water, do your proper demolition, decontamination, and then we opted to follow him along and do a smart rebuild on his base, a smart build that's resilient, so he could put his house back on the market and get a good feedback on a proper put back after flood home on the market.
So that's exactly what had happened. And so, like you said, the demolition happened very quickly.
Yeah.
Remediation happened very quickly. It was dried out. And then it was the decisions were, what do we do? Do we put it back the way it was before? Or do we go a step further, improve it to ensure that, if there ever is an event like this again, that basement is protected? So maybe walk us through what are the decisions and the choices that the homeowner made.
I'm totally impressed what he did after the project as well. He wrote a booklet storyline of his basement and how it was finished, and he puts this on his counter when people come look at the house, and I'm fascinated that he's showing the truth what's going on in his basement and the end result. So very smartly rebuilt the basement in a resilient way. How we propose to do basements when they're new builds is one, it's create resiliency. If there's water coming into the house, it's going downstairs. So the walls, spray foam installation instead of fiber bats, it's easy to dry. It's basically almost waterproof. Wall framing, whether it's wood or studs, don't lay them on the ground, on the concrete, elevate them, create ventilation. Everything sticks to the bottom of any wall to the concrete. And 3, a floor. Put a resilient floor, something that will last through flooding or moisture. And I know we don't build our homes for necessary for flooding, but that basement should be resilient to moisture and or flooding if it happens. So he did this 3 steps: spray foam walls, new wall frames because they were heavily damaged, ventilated the bottom of the walls with this product that ventilates the bottom of the walls, elevates the walls from rotting, and a resilient vinyl floor. So he did a real nice product. The product is stunning. We got that job done for him in under 6 weeks, so he can put the house back on the market, and it looks stunning.
It was incredible. So I know because I'm the one who listed that property, and we got it back on the market in record time, I would say.
Yeah.
And maybe tell us about this product. And you actually invented this product called Teksill.
Yeah.
Describe what that product is and how it came about. How did you come about inventing this thing?
It was to bring frustration. I was building a house building a basement in 2012 in Hampstead. A gentleman, a teacher at the Polytechnique de Montreal, and they bought a house, and they were in a rush, and they bought it, and the first house got inspected, refused. The second house, he didn't bring in an inspector to inspect it. They bought it. We get into the house after he identifies problems in his basement. The house has a slightly collapsed foundation. It was 2.5 inches offset as it was sinking. So we did the due diligence for the foundation, but building his $70,000 basement in 2012, I felt like this is high risk of water intruding into this basement. So in that build of that basement, I designed a prototype. I designed a ventilation under the walls, and I followed the engineer's rule. I like the engineer's rule quite a bit. Keep it simple, stupid or smart. You don't got to say smart these days. So how can I elevate walls? Since then, I've heard hockey pucks elevate walls, which is a good thing. But back then, in 2012, I looked at the real estate agent signs, Coroplast. Awesome product. It's ventilated. So I bought the thickest Coroplast possible, 3/8 of an inch thick, and I cut it in strips. It would follow under the 2x4 of the walls. Okay. So we covered all the bottom of these walls with Coroplast, which would allow for 3/8 airflow under the walls. We showed it to our engineer. He loved it. Back then, we were starting to build resilient basements. In 2012, we were doing ceramic floors throughout and then installing the walls on top. So we installed this prototype under these walls and built this basement, and I felt more comfortable about the client putting in $70,000 in his family basement in Hampstead and with a crooked foundation, despite the waterproofing done onto it. And ironically, since 2012, in this basement, Teksill evolved to now a product in 20 stores, and we're selling across Canada, saving a lot of people's basements from disasters. But This house in Hampstead in 2000, end of 20, went in 2022, had a flood. Had a flood that came from the kitchen fridge. So there was about $3,000 damage on his basement ceilings. But the bottom of all his walls, he had 1/4 inch of water in his basement. Bottom of all his walls had no work to be done. The baseboards even dried out with airflow. What this product does, Teksill, creates airflow under the walls.
So basically, if you have water, you can quickly extract the water and dry it out very quickly before there's any damage.
Correct, yeah. And it's quite hard to understand. Teksill, it's a complicated name. It's for technology and the seal of your walls. Easy way to understand Teksill, ventilation under the walls. It's like when I explain to people who don't catch it, you go outside in a pair of boots in the winter or in the rain, and you're standing in your grass, the grass is wet. You take one of your boots off. Your sock is like the wood of a wall. Take one boot off, put your foot in the water, in the grass, and your sock starts to absorb the water. Right. Well, that's what a wall does in a basement. So Teksill is like a boot under your wall. Elevates your walls, protects them, and has ventilation. If there is water, can do a fast dry out.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
So how about some of the other methods and systems that people are taking? For example, the client we were talking about who sort of upgraded the waterproof readiness of his basement.
Yeah.
There was a sump pump issue as well that I know.
Yeah.
The sump pump was too small. It wasn't deep enough, wasn't wide enough. And you brought in a specialist from your network and team to help advise on this one. Yeah. And tell me a little bit more about that.
Oh boy, Mike White, the god of foundation cracks. This guy, he's got, like me, he's got his experience from his father. And he knows how to take care of foundation cracks, issues, water, flooding. He's actually doing the renovation in this customer's new place we're renovating. So he came in, and he's very good at keeping basements dry foundation wise. So he came in and he did a heavy duty sump pump basin, which has a sealed surface lid, pipes coming out the side in the slab, and a very smart sump pump. And if he can, he installs a second sump pump inside there if the city allows. So that sump pump basin he did is very, very effective. So
because I know in that instance, it wasn't the fact that the sump pump malfunctioned or there was a power cut. It was simply a fact of on August 9th, there was so much water in such a short period of time. Yeah. It was the volume of water that pump couldn't keep up. It was, right. I think it was a 1/4 horsepower, single pump. And the exit piped out to the storm sewer was only, I think, 1 1/4 inch or something.
Right.
So there again is some issues that could be improved and rectified to avoid those issues happen again. So they went to, I think, a 1/2 horsepower and 2 pumps at different levels. So if one
fails, you get the second one takes over.
Take over, exactly.
That's very important. And sump pumps in people's homes. Some homes don't have sump pump systems. The French drains are connected directly to the storm drain for the city. But the ones that do have sump pumps, I highly suggest consider 5 years, 8 years, not 10 years. Change your sump pump. Make sure it's effective. Don't take a risk with an old sump pump. It's the engine of the car, the sump pump. Want to make sure that it's well operating. You get in your car in the winter in the rain, you want it to work.
So what would your advice be to homeowners in terms of making sure that they're doing the proper maintenance or testing of their sump pumps to ensure those systems are working?
Well, I'd regularly go down and get on your knees and just jiggle around the sump pump. Make sure it's actually working. But if you see it, it's corroded and it's rusted. You're thinking 5 to 10 years. Get a good sump pump going there. So if you do have that deluge of water, a little bit or a deluge, you know that you've got a little army inside your sump pump ready to evacuate your water.
Exactly. I know my brother Sean has done extensive research into this on his home because he definitely has got water issues, and he's got everyone was telling him, it's overkill, the system you've got. And he said after August 9th and he didn't get flooded, he's like, now this is why I did that. Yeah. And the Zoller pumps, heavy duty, cast iron.
Oh yeah, it's it's what you don't see underneath the house. The water table, or if you do have a plumbing break, you're hoping that your sump pump is your first line of defense. So.
And what are there some other things that homeowners can do, other sort of techniques around maybe landscaping that could be done to help mitigate against the risk of basement floods?
Yeah, the easy, proper grading of your lawn. If you can run your water off anywhere from 6 to 10 feet from your house with just your lawn, your grass, or the proper gardening, proper downspouts, that's a massive stress off your foundation. Foundations don't like to have water pressure around them. So help your foundation by having the water run off far as possible.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, let's get back to the situation of the emergency. When a homeowner discovers water in their basement, like what happened this past August, what are some mistakes that you see or have heard homeowners make, and what advice would you give should this ever happen again?
Well, gosh, I had the privilege of reading the Scott Broady booklet, and it's pretty darn awesome. Very detailed. I've reading that booklet. That's, if I could read it right now, I'd be telling people exactly what they should do. It's really complete, your booklet. So I'd like to be able to promote it as much as I can to all my clientele.
Well, just so our audience understands what Jim's talking about, we haven't yet launched this, but we've been working on this and talking with the experts like you, like Mike White, and sort of putting together a booklet of what should people be doing, the steps they should take, because we saw a lot of people had no idea what they should be doing. A lot of people were waiting for their insurance adjuster to call before doing anything, which, as you know, is probably a mistake when you've got 4 inches, 5 inches of water in your basement.
Disaster, yeah. So in a situation like this, the first and foremost thing is like, oh my God, what a disaster, I got water in my basement. Everything's floating and everything's wet. What do I do? First thing is to safety rule. How do I go down there safely? There's all kinds of techniques, rubber boots and gloves, and be careful of your electricity. It's not a game for rushing around and not thinking. So you want to be extremely safe when you're going down in these basements that have water. Once you've acknowledged that you're doing things safely, well, is it a water pressure flood from your city pipes? Shut your water valve off. Where's the water coming in? Like this unfortunate flood, Mother Nature, all the water tables were over full. Water's come in from where you don't see under the house. So what can you do? Your sump pump can't handle it. There's water coming in, could be coming from the window well. It's coming in from around your foundation slab. How do you control this? So get your water in your house, and first thing you do is you got to get that water. You got to extract, remove that water. How do I extract that water as fast as possible? If my sump pump's not doing it, then I've got to call someone to help, the city to help, services or contractors to come in and help with pumps, get the water out. How do I get that water out? As soon as water is out, then of course it's the due diligence, call your insurance company, get some fans out temporarily, try to get a restoration contractor in as soon as possible, and then assess the damages. Gosh, what do I do? What kind of water was it? Organic? Was it, water pipes from the house? It's clean water? Or was it sewage? How do I have to clean this? What kind of decontamination do I have to do? So, not fun. What a disaster this big one was, organic water, and you basically have to clean out everything.
Yeah, because I know from personal experience, it happened to me where I didn't have a lot of water in the basement, but I knew I would have to remove the floating floor in the basement. But when I pulled that up, like you said, I documented everything first, made sure I took photos, opened file a claim with my insurance company, and then started just documenting everything. But started right away on the removal of the wet material. Yeah. Then when I opened up the baseboards just to check to see what was happening, well, then I found a whole different issue. There had been mold from a previous leak, which was probably due to a foundation crack, which I discovered when I opened up the walls even more. So here's the thing where a lot of people I've heard didn't do that flood cut, which is what that 2 feet above or just above where the water level was during the flood. Cut that gyprock out right away. Get out as much wet material as you can, right?
Yeah. The flood cut's pretty smart because it allows you to see the bottom of the walls, what's dry and not. How do you dry the bottom of the wall? That's wood on the concrete. Basement's not Teksills, then the wood's not gonna. It frustrates me, and what part of Teksill technology is that. I believe the bottom of walls is an area people don't want to see. It's like put it. It's behind me. I don't want to see it. But how do you see under the wall? It's when we take the old sill plates off. There's always brown. There's always brown and deterioration. So that flood cut's really smart because it allows you to see everything at the bottom of your wall. If there's fiber insulation, you pull it out, you dry it out. Dry your. Don't put. You want to make sure your wall's super dry before you put your drywalls on, or you're going to create more long-term damage. How do you dry that 2x4 that's on the concrete? You got a week and a half, 2 weeks to leave the walls open at least with machines to make sure that wood is not wet. If it's wet, you close it up. You're going to create more condensation, like you see in the baseboards. The moisture comes back up.
Okay.
Yeah.
We also saw, obviously, contractors like you overwhelmed. How many homeowners were you helping during this, in the last couple of months?
Gosh, that Friday night, it sounds like an old disco song or something, It's that Friday night, all my great clientels and the people who know me, I went to 16 houses that night. I got out of my house and just attacked as much as I can. I had one of my men surrounding my work. He's come behind me. He's helping out. Going after house after house. 16 at the end of the night, I got to. And then I get a call from my neighbors on my own street. 1, 2, 3 neighbors saying, "Hey, Jim, when can you come to my house?" I said, "Oh, gosh, I must have water in my own basement if all my neighbors have it." I got home at 3 a.m. after trying to help 16 homes. And I had 6 inches of water in my own basement, and my pumps were at clients' homes. So I went to bed, let the water recede, because it was French drain water. It would recede back out. In the morning, I had slight wet floors, but my basement needs to be the insurance tear out as well. Eventually, I'll get to there. The shoe repairman has holes in his shoes. So my house is last. I'm treating all my clients first. So
Incredible.
Yeah.
So here's a question that I got from a lot of homeowners is, I can't find a contractor to help me,
Oh, boy.
right?
Yeah.
So I'd really like to ask you, for those that couldn't find somebody to help and need to try and do this themselves, at least they've got the basics out of the way, which is they got the water out,
Yeah.
they've removed the wet materials, and now it's a question of the rebuild process, right? And if they can't find a contractor and they're handy, want to do some things themselves, what are some things that you would recommend to them, and which are some things that you would definitely recommend they leave to a professional?
Well, a really good topic. Breaks my heart because just most flooded basements, people weren't planning on this. People, I don't believe, saved their money for a flood disaster like this. And a lot of times with the insurance companies, you're getting 40 cents on a dollar. If you're lucky, sometimes you're getting more than that, but not fun. So I'm coaching a lot of people, part from Renovation, my renovation company, and part from the Teksill product that I've developed. Coaching a lot of people. You can do this yourself. It's not complicated. If you're handy, you're good, you're decent with tools, you're careful, you don't hurt yourself, you can do this yourself. You can upgrade your basement. If you got 2-foot flood cut, you can repair your insulation down below. You can retrofit Teksill into your existing wall without basement tear out. Teksill ventilation strip is easy to install when you're building your basement. Very snap on, it clicks on the bottom of the wood, just build your wall on top. It's faster than actually putting the vapor barrier with staplers. You just slide it on like a sock. Very easy. But when you got your flood cut 2 feet and you got all your nice walls and your whole basement, like, oh, this is a disaster. I'm not planning to sink it into 30, 40, 60,000 in my basement. We have a guide, a Teksill. It's a cutting guide. It's a Teksill. It's called Tech Guide. You lay it on your bottom sill plate, and it guides you to slice the bottom of your studs at the right height. Take out the old rotten sill plate, or the old dirty or soiled sill plate. Not always rotten, but all the times they're brown. And reinstall the new sill plate wood with Teksill. You screw your studs back in place, and once it's you're ready for drywall, you're drywaling right up to the Teksill. You do 8 feet at a time. You don't do your whole basement because your walls will dangle, but it's a very easy installation. So I coach many homeowners, many contractors how to do this. It's a very easy installation. Basically it's retrofitting, and you don't have to be a contractor or carpenter to do it. It's doable. So then upgrading your insulation. If you can do a bit of spray foam on the bottom of your wall instead of fiber insulation, or leave the insulation a bit higher. If there is moisture again, it's not going to attack the loose fiber insulation. If you can spray foam the bottom 2-foot belt, it's going to give you more resiliency in the bottom of the wall. So what frustrates me is putting the walls back together with drywall, and your bottom wall is conventional, non-protected, non-ventilated. When that Friday night, when I went out to the 16 homes, and this whole 2.5 months after flood, that Friday night I had 3 Teksill basements that I went to. And out of the 3 Teksill basements, they even had a resilient floor. They went to an epoxy because they've had many other floods and they want to have as best possible basement. Spray foam walls, Teksill under the lumber, and epoxy floors. These 3 basements I went to that Friday night, it was extract the water, shop vac, put fans out. They have no damage. The airflow into the walls helps dry the baseboard. You can spray some decontamination. The baseboard's elevated a little bit. You can spray decontamination materials under the baseboard. These basements, they flooded, they extracted the water, they dried them out. They're not calling insurance. They're not removing the walls. They're not even painting their baseboards. How fast it dries out. It's about 60 times faster drying. So that's what this product is not well known yet, and we're selling across Canada slowly but surely. But a homeowner that's putting their drywall back in traditional basement because there's nothing else to do, ventilating the bottom of the walls with this Teksill product, a hockey puck, a
Good
brick.
Canadian solution, eh?
It's a real Canadian solution, a hockey puck. So it can be taught, it can be done easily enough. If someone can put up a 2x4, they can install Teksill.
That's amazing. That's great. That's
Yeah.
great advice. And you also mentioned epoxy. So we're getting more and more questions from homeowners saying, what should I put back? Like, because people had subfloors with, some people had hardwood in their basements.
Yeah.
We wouldn't do that again, and now
No.
people are taking out those subfloors and either pputting down vinyl, or people are asking, is epoxy a good option?
Yeah, gosh, I get a lot of back and forth on it as well. You look at concretes or basement slabs, the sidewalks are made out of concrete. They last forever. They crack here and there because there's a lot of movement outside. But the concrete slab in the basement, you walk into Costco, Home Depot, Reno Depot, you see concrete. It's like, it's dirty, but it's been walked on, stained, but it's very long lasting. The ideal is polished concrete, but it's expensive. Your concrete has to be nice. It won't look good if you got fractures in it. Epoxy, I call it a best of possible solutions. It's not a cure-all, like Teksill is not a cure-all, but epoxy floor is quite resilient. It's bonded to the concrete. It won't deattach. There's no space below it if you get floods. It's easy to dry out. Whether it's the best solution or not, I find it a very resilient solution. Subfloors, I find, they're nice to have. They're warm. You can ventilate. You can build a subfloor with Teksill below every stud, so they're ventilated, and you don't have moisture buildup or rot. But it's expensive. It's like building a wall on a floor, and then you got studs, you got plywood, and you still got to put a finished floor on top of it. That subfloor becomes expensive. So I'm telling people, if you can go resilient, polished concrete, epoxy, that's going to give you a best chance possible solution. If you're going with a subfloor, it's going to be expensive, comfortable, nice looking, but it's expensive. Or if you can't go expensive subfloor, if you can't go with a resilient epoxy or polished concrete, which is around $10 a square foot, then go with something disposable that if you have to take it off, floating floor or laminate or carpet, it's not going to kill the budget that you're replacing. That space under any floating floor has to be, as you said, has to be lifted and cleaned up. Mm-hmm. So when someone's not going to invest a lot of money on their floor, we'll do something that's not going to kill the budget if you got to take it out.
Got it. Yeah. Got it. Good advice. Now, how about, what's your opinion now with the frequency of these weather events happening? Do you think there's anything that communities could be doing differently or better to help their constituents and homeowners manage these events more effectively?
Yeah, well, gosh, I'm hearing more and more. It's where we're having these every 2 years. Not everybody gets flooded at the same time, but it seems like it's every 2 years we're getting hit by some big rainfall or
Yeah, whether it was an ice storm in April,
yeah.
flash flood in August.
The restoration contractors that I work with, they know the 2 year dates going back. So. Gosh, what can people do with their homes, their neighborhoods? A lot of cities are creating workshops, how to better protect your basement with check valves and backwater valves and rainwater off your landscape. So there's a lot of information coming out of the cities. But when it comes to the inside of the basement, it's new now. Resiliency and how you build a basement. It's not well known.
And you were talking about how much, building like this with the resiliency built in. How much could this save insurance companies?
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, with Teksill, we have a independent study where Teksill, which can drive basements 60 times faster. This independent study has acknowledged that Teksill can probably save 75% of basement flood claim costs. That's a huge amount of money.
Wow. If
your basement's built smart, built right, we've been working with insurance companies for the last 5-6 years, going through the process, showing them the proof of concepts. We even have a flood house in Dorval. It's a store in Dorval. It's a shop that sells restoration products. They sell for fire, flood, and crime event, unfortunate. And they teach contractors how to become restoration specialists, accredited from IIRIC International and standards. And they actually have a flood house. And this flood house, it's a small little bungalow, which 6 times a year there's classes. And they flood the house and teach the contractors how to dry it from 2,000 liters of water on the ground floor seeping into the basement. Well, half the basement is a non-Teksill subfloor and non-Teksill walls. The other half is Teksill outfitted subfloor and walls. The non-Teksill side takes the students with the best restoration machines in the industry, electronic sensors reading the moisture and wood. The non-Teksill side takes 6 to 9 days to dry the relative humidity out of the wood back to normal. 6 to 9 days. Mold starts to grow after 48 hours. So it's not very effective. The Teksill side of the basement, not 6 to 9 days, dries with ventilation under all the wood, 20 hours, dried back to normal.
Wow.
Insurance companies, when you're wet more than 48 hours, it's the cut line, cut out, dry out. These Teksill basements that I told you were dry the next day, well, it's the airflow under the walls helps to dry out all wood surfaces. So when you don't have to tear out, that's a huge lifestyle change in your basement,
Absolutely, because we're hearing now it's going to be much harder getting flood insurance after these events, and so the best cure is preventing it from happening in the first place.
Yeah, and apparently in Quebec, my insurance pro tells me that 2 floods in Quebec, you're canceled. Now you can't get flood insurance in your basement anymore. You're doomed to go for commercial basement insurance. Oh boy. That's not fun, expensive. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So prevention is very important. After reading your booklet, was so complete on your explanation of how people should look at flooding basements, how to protect yourself. And there's one aspect in there I thought it was, very interesting that could be looked at. Homeowners, apart from your resilient built basement, your furniture and your content. When I'm coaching people how to surf this insurance negotiations and so on, one is your content. Don't forget your content that got damaged. You don't want to regret later on that you didn't claim your content. But some owners are insurance repeated unfortunate flood clients, and they've built their basement furniture their basement furniture is resilient. Furniture off the ground, steel legs, stuff in bins. I walk in those ways and say, wow, you were prepared. Congratulations, So
that's a great point, because I've heard people saying, well, I've had all my my storage area in the crawl space, but it was all on the floor. It was on the cement floor.
Disaster.
And that's gone. It's lost.
Yeah.
Whereas if you had it on plastic or steel,
Steel.
shelving units or risers, you could protect that.
Yeah. And it's why not be proactive on your furniture as well? You're cutting down your stress. You're cutting down what you have to claim to the insurance. It's better overall, Yeah.
Great advice.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we haven't touched on that you think is relevant and important for homeowners to know?
Well, gosh, like I said, my dad's real estate, upbringing in my life was I keep going back to when I go to a client's house and I talk to them how to rebuild their basements and how to surf this insurance event. I'll go back to the declaration that people have to do when they sell their house, and it's no matter what, even if you're trying to convince somebody to build smart or not, or they don't want to build smart. It's the bottom line is when I walk out of someone's house is when you sell your house eventually, you're gonna have to do that declaration, and you have to be honest. That declaration, it protects you, the homeowner. Like my personal basement, I gotta gut it out right A to Z. I built my basement 20 years ago, resilient floor ceramic, but the walls weren't elevated with Teksill. The walls is fiber insulation. I'm gutting that basement. I'm going to declare that I had the famous flood, and this basement was rebuilt smart. Now, when someone buys the house, I can declare I passed through this flood. I did my due diligence, and now you're going to have a smart basement. So there's one site called Prevcan, Precan. It's a site that across Canada, people can look into it and see also the electronic devices to help you protect. The detectors, if you have water coming into your basement, it can shut your main water valve off. It can send an alarm to your phone. You get water in your basement. I find people today, they're much more proactive on watching their basements. We don't have a choice anymore. So, yeah. But the declaration is, I find it may be a deciding factor, how I should rebuild my basement, And I also, last thing to add, I often, when a client's undecided how to rebuild their basement or what should they do, or should they even repair their flooded basement, I say, if you've got a good, smart real estate agent friend or someone who's in real estate, call them, ask them what you should do. They'll give you the right advice. Your house has to be well kept, well maintained. It's important.
Well, exactly. As realtors, we always advise clients, what you're looking at is the bones and the structure of the building. Is it the foundation? Has there been leaks? Is the roof, is the roof a good integral materials being used? Has there been water infiltration in the past? And if so, what has been done to correct it? So these are all very important things that buyers consider. Yeah. And like you said, have a big impact on the future resale value of the home. Yeah. So kudos to you and your team, and your invention is absolutely incredible. Where can people go for more information, to find out more about how to get the product, how to retrofit, and to get tips and advice on how to install it themselves?
Awesome. One of my renovation men, his name is Connor Hall. He's got great words. He says it all starts with the sill. So protecting the bottom of your wall, it's key, I find, in building a smart bottom of the house, the basement. You can get our product. We're in about 20 stores locally across Montreal. We're selling online, free shipping across Canada, Teksill.com. You can go on Facebook, you can go on YouTube. We have a ton of videos, how to install Teksill, how to retrofit with Teksill, what are the pros and cons of a Teksill, why should I elevate the walls. So that's pretty good. We're happy about doing free shipping across Canada. It's Canadian-made invention. I stayed strong to make sure. I even manufacture in Montreal, in Pointe-aux-Trembles. We manufacture here. We kept it local. All the development was done here. I'm very, very proud of that. Putting back into the local economy. So Teksill.com, everything is there, and the Facebook and the YouTube stuff.
Awesome. That's Teksill.com.
Yep, right.
Fantastic. And Jim, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. You're a wealth of knowledge, and as again, you've got many clients here in the West Island. From renovations, you've done extensions, you're a specialist also in structural, additions and things like that. What other areas would you say are your specialty from a renovation standpoint?
Our specialty, which my dad brought me into this world of building smart, building strong. We do house makeovers, complete A to Z house makeovers, and when we do it smart. I have an engineering team, technolog team, design team. If you're going to do it smart. I work with all good, honest people. I make sure that I surround myself with guys that are real, they're fair, and when you get involved in a project, the whole thing becomes a family project because everybody's working to help each other. So house makeovers, extensions, and we do a lot of structural modifications. We love structures, working with LVLs and steel frames, and it all has to be solid. And and everybody knows when in our renovations, the basement has to be top-notch resilient. If there's any water goes in this basement, well, it's a clean out. It's not a disaster. Even during build, the basement's protected for the contractor,
Well, I know for a fact that our client has been thrilled with the service he provided and the finished product of his basement. So once again, thank you very much. It's great having you as one of our trusted service providers. If you're not a member of the Homeowners Advisory Club yet, you definitely should be. You'll have access to our directory of trusted advisors. Jim McDonald is one of them. So if you please subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcast. Look for this also on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. And thanks again, Jim. It's great to have you.
Awesome. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right.